Ever have a hard time handling feelings or say to yourself, I'm never going to let myself feel that again, whether it was a feeling of sadness or anger or disappointment or maybe even feeling embarrassed? That's what today's podcast is all about. Feelings and how to manage them. Consider this a first look. It's a topic I'll come back to again and again on this podcast. Hi, I'm Dr. Joan Rosenberg, and you are listening to Mindstream, How to Design a Fully Expressed Life. This is podcast number 13. Most of us know someone facing emotional pain and who feels powerless or struggles to have control over his or her life, or wants life to feel more meaningful. I believe every moment is an opportunity for transformation, and I help people reach their dreams, resolve challenges with anxiety, depression, relationships, self-criticism, and speaking up. I help you, coaches and clinicians alike, achieve emotional mastery by choosing to live into your moment-to-moment experiences. Moving toward what is difficult and sometimes painful or unpleasant is what builds emotional strength, unwavering confidence, emotional resilience, rock-solid self-esteem, and lasting transformation. You want to stay with me throughout the whole podcast as I talk about what I consider the first of many different strategies to handle feelings. It comes from something I've described as an emotifier or an emotional modifier. And like I said, it's the first and probably the most important of all the strategies that I have. Some neuroscientists say we have little direct control over our emotional reactions. And though you can disconnect or you can distract from or you can suppress much of what you experience, you really can't entirely shut yourself off from feeling. And how you register feeling has certain common qualities that cut across our human experience. So when you know how your brain works, including how it processes feeling, it can provide you with a sense of relief and perhaps even a sense of calm. Each of these elements then can also help you manage your feelings more comfortably, and it may also allow you to modify your experience. And the key here is once you are conscious of it, not before. And what that allows you to do then is to respond more effectively in any given situation. And the goal here is to be able to respond to something, not to react to it. So what I've heard, and it almost seems like infamous lines now, is, well, okay, so now I feel my feelings, now what do I do with them? Or what do I do with my feelings once I feel them? I mean, why bother anyway? What you don't realize is that you have just hit the mother lode, what I consider the gold mine or the diamonds under the coal. What to do? The answer is to experience and to integrate those feelings into the fullness of who you are. Think of feelings as the vibrancy of life. They are what make you feel alive. They are what allow you to feel connected or well connected to others. They are what others see as charisma. And when you express your feelings, feelings are what give others the sense that they know you. So if you're not aware of them and you don't access them and you don't allow yourself to experience them and you don't allow yourself to express those feelings, then you can start to feel somewhat fragmented. Maybe you feel disconnected, perhaps a little numb. Sometimes people will describe feeling emotionally frozen, and it gets worse. Sometimes people describe feeling somewhat dead inside or alienated from others. Pretty painful stuff. And I think of this whole notion of then feeling alienated from others and dead inside as somewhat of a living hell. It's really terrifying to be physically alive and to feel emotionally dead inside. So what follows is the first main strategy for helping you modify your feelings once you become aware of them. I'll be talking later on in subsequent podcasts about more strategies that I've described in this emotifier. And think of these strategies as strategies that will enable you to thaw emotionally, to feel like your emotional energy is flowing, so that you can be connected inside and out and feel fully alive again. And what it is then, emotifier number one is to ride feelings like they are ocean waves. It's really crucial that you learn how to tolerate and experience unpleasant or painful feelings, since those are the ones that trip people up the most. And if you don't manage feelings very well, then they can become relationship killers, they can become goal destroyers, or they collapse your drive to pursue adventures and change. Certainly, you need to be able to fully experience and express positive feelings too, especially in the context of relationships, whether those relationships are with colleagues, close friends, an intimate relationship, or parent to child. And this strategy works for both types of feelings, the pleasant and the unpleasant ones. So the single most effective strategy then for modulating or managing, and again, not controlling these feelings, involves this analogy or metaphor of an ocean wave. Perhaps you've been to the ocean, seen an ocean on TV, seen an ocean in film or in a picture, know that an ocean exists. Well, you get the idea. Follow me. If you've ever watched ocean waves, you know how the waves come in. Sometimes intensely, sometimes tumultuous and crashing, and sometimes somewhat moderate, and sometimes with a gentle roll. And if you've ever walked along the ocean shoreline, you'll notice that no matter how the wave comes up on the beach, it seems to linger and to hang just for a few moments, just before it ebbs back into the ocean. Well, that's how feelings are. Experienced as sensations or surges of energy in our body proper first. Think neck down. Feelings rise up within us just like ocean waves hit the shoreline. Sometimes they come up intensely and leave us feeling flooded or overwhelmed, and other times they rise more slowly and gently. And feelings linger as well. Sometimes seconds, sometimes minutes, sometimes hours. Well, they don't really linger that long. Our mood seems to linger that long. And to some, it may seem like feelings linger for days. Again, that's not true. It would be our mood that seems to linger for days. The truth is that regardless how intensely those feelings come up, they will always subside. In most instances, they'll subside sooner rather than later. The key then is to learn how to bear and to tolerate your feelings. Again, especially the unpleasant ones, because those are the ones we want to avoid the most. And tolerating your feelings depends on your ability to ride the waves of unpleasant emotion. Think of it as surfing, sailing, boogie boarding, or body surfing, whatever, canoeing, whatever your best in the water, allowing yourself to move mode of transportation is. The key, just hang tight and ride the wave. The key then to riding the wave, riding this emotional wave, and bearing especially unpleasant or uncomfortable feelings, is to tolerate the bodily sensations that accompany that particular feeling. Now, generally speaking, the intensity will pass in moments. The feelings will subside. Remember, we're talking probably about a couple minutes, 90 seconds to a couple minutes, and you will experience whatever feeling you're experiencing subsiding. So what I'd love for you to do is to empower yourself. Notice it happen. Feel it, and then notice how it dissipates and goes away. Ride that emotional wave. You can do that today. When you start to experience something, again, no matter what the feeling, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, empower yourself. Take the time to notice what the experience is as you experience a feeling. Could be anger, could be sadness, could be laughter, could be joy, could be contentment, could be embarrassment. It doesn't matter what it is. What I want you to do is to notice it happen, feel it, And then notice how it dissipates and goes away. So ride that wave. What's interesting and somewhat paradoxical is that the more you suppress, the more you disconnect, the more you distract from feeling, the longer it takes to move through painful or unpleasant memories, or to resolve the feelings that come along with those memories. So if, for example, you continue to feel lingering anger or disappointment or sadness, then you have to take a close look at the thoughts that you are thinking that re-stimulate the same neural circuitry that's connected to that painful experience. Sometimes it's your memory of the emotion that lasts. Again, what feels like minutes or hours or days or years, maybe for you or others, maybe it's even decades. And the idea here then is that you are remembering. And it's your remembering that elicits that same physiological experience or that same bodily sensation or same bodily sensations that are similar to the one or the ones that you initially felt. It is remembered, think, felt in your body. And when it is remembered, each time you recall the memory, then it's this process of recalling over and over and over that can impede your emotional growth throughout life. The beauty is, and thankfully, you have the choice of what to feel, and once again, that it's made more conscious, the beauty is it can be changed. So if you are reactive and you explode quickly, or you shut down by not talking or withdrawing completely, and then leaving when facing conflict or other challenging life situations, then it's likely that you behave in that same manner when your feelings or those surges of energy flooding your body are intensifying. So you can be reactive, you can shut down, or you can leave when you have difficulty tolerating the bodily sensations that accompany the feelings that feel too intense to you, or that they feel too overwhelming to you. Again, it's that flooding sensation. So if you take several deep breaths and pause for what may be just seconds, you can re-engage your capacity to think and to reason and to reflect, and even more importantly, decide more consciously how to handle the conflict or the situation. So when you can ride that emotional intensity, that flooding feeling up and then follow the intensity back down again, then you can develop the capacity to respond as opposed to react to situations. Here's an example of what I mean. And I'll use Debbie, a client that I saw many years ago, as this example. Debbie had historically used sarcasm as a way of relating to others, and it was something that I was helping her try to understand and to change. She came into my office one evening and described a fight that she'd had with her boyfriend of 5 months. As she tried to address an emotionally charged topic with him, he got quieter and quieter and eventually shut down, stopping all conversation on his end completely. Now, you can imagine how infuriating this was to Debbie, and her response was to escalate, especially through sarcasm, pushing him to talk, and pushing and pushing and pushing. Well, it didn't work, and each time she pushed, she was met with more silence. So, feeling that much more infuriated, she then picked up her things and she left his place with nothing resolved, experiencing all of the anger and all of the sadness and frustration of the fight. She told me that as she drove away, she thought about how to handle the pain. She'd experienced fleeting thoughts of drinking and fleeting thoughts of cutting, two very maladaptive coping strategies that she had used much earlier in our work together. And still feeling the intensity of her anger about the fight, and with tears streaming down her face as she kept driving, she told me that her thoughts shifted. She then took some deep breaths and she began reminding herself to ride the waves. So she needed to ride the waves of anger, and she needed to ride the waves of sadness that she was aware were running through her body. And by the time she reached her home, the emotional intensity had abated. It subsided. And what happened when that happened was that it allowed her to have greater clarity about the real issue of the fight and also about how she had behaved. Had she been able to handle the intensity of her anger and disappointment and sadness more effectively, she may not have resorted to escalating the fight, nor being sarcastic and more hurtful, and she probably would not have left the fight and left her boyfriend's home. Despite those challenges, once she physically left the situation, she was then able to incorporate the deep breathing and the idea, the cognitive cue, if you will, of riding the wave to further calm herself down. So that's it. It's all about riding the wave of feeling. Remember, when you start to experience a feeling, whether they're pleasant or they're unpleasant, remember they have a certain life to them, if you will, and a certain intensity to them. And it becomes important that you ride the wave up and you follow that wave down, much like you're riding an ocean wave. If you can do that, it's going to allow you to tolerate that feeling far more effectively, and then you can make use of it in your everyday life to protect, if that's what's needed, or to allow yourself to connect more deeply with other people, or to use that same energy of emotion to create. Thanks for joining me on Mindstream. And if you like what you hear, please subscribe. And if you really like what you hear, please leave a review on iTunes. And feel free to download and to listen to the earlier podcasts as well. And check out Ease Your Anxiety, my book on Amazon. And remember as well, simple ideas can lead to profound change and growth. Choose one. Design the life you'd love to live. Until next time, feel, tell, and live the truth of who you are.